Welcome, everybody. I'm not Michelle Obama. My guest is not. Who are you not?
Barack Obama, I guess.
She is not Barack Obama. And this is Let's Have Fun in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. What is your name, though? What is your real name?
Uh, I'm Helen, and
Hey, Helen. I'm Jonathan.
hi.
This is the first real episode of this podcast. So one day that could be pretty cool or it could be meaningless.
And I'm very
Um,
honored to be the first guest.
Good. Thank you. We're honored to have you. I'm honored to have you because this is really just a one-man team. So let's let me ask you. You told me that you are currently a professional scientist and that you're
Mm-hmm.
studying for your PhD, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell me, when you say you're a professional scientist, what does that mean? What do you do?
So currently, I'm getting a PhD in biophysics at Harvard University. So what that entails, so first it can be uh, many different topics. People can be studying any topics within the realm of science, like it can be physics, biology, chemistry, etc. So what I do more specifically is I study IVF, which stands for in vitro fertilization.
Okay.
So what I do is using computer vision or artificial intelligence to analyze clinical IVF videos in order to figure out a way to improve the clinical success rate.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Um, so you're saying you use like basically computer vision AI to improve the success
Mm-hmm.
rate of in vitro fertilization, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How, what
Yeah.
exactly is the AI doing? What are you doing with the AI to improve the IVF?
So what I'm doing exactly is using computer vision to extract features from the images and videos. That's where computer vision comes in. And then using the features that we extracted, I'm using like statistics and data science, etc., to build in like a selection model.
Hmm.
So it's kind of mathematical modeling in that sense.
Okay.
And then to like build a selection algorithm, pretty much.
Uh-huh. So are you telling me that, like, for instance, this is helping you, if I understand correctly, in vitro fertilization takes a bunch of eggs and a bunch of sperm cells
Mm-hmm.
and it, fertilizes the eggs. And then the egg is, the fertilized egg is placed back into the womb or whatever that's called.
Mm-hmm.
And like the technical term, I don't know it, but um, and then that's where it grows and becomes a baby, correct, or a fetus.
Mm-hmm. Right. Within that process, so most patients during one cycle of treatment would have, on average, 10 oocytes that will be fertilized. So if the fertilization are all successful, then you have multiple embryos to choose from to implant because you want to decrease the risk of having multiple pregnancies at the same time because those are high risk pregnancies that you're trying to avoid. So,
Hmm.
in general, doctors would try to implant one embryo at a time, or usually no more than two. So, back
When
in
you
the
say one,
days,
when you say one
people would.
embryo, when you say one embryo, we're talking about like twins, triplets, that kind of thing, right? You want to keep it to one, maybe two. Is that what you're saying?
We want to keep it to one, ideally. And
Okay.
then if the patient is older or they have previously failed cycles of treatments, then like usually will go up in numbers. So different clinics have different practices as well. Some clinics are more willing to like transfer more embryos at a time, but in general, people are trying to decrease the risk of multiple pregnancies. So then like most doctors try to transfer one embryo at a time. So because of that, we have to have the best, most robust selection algorithm to select only one embryo, or to like select the best embryo so we can transfer only one. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. You're basically trying to use like AI to look at these embryos and select the
Mm-hmm.
one that we think will have the greatest chance of success. Is that what you're telling me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wow.
correct.
That's awesome. Um, that's really cool. Cool. Why do you have a background in biology, or what's your background that you decided to get into this?
So my background was actually in physics.
Hmm.
When I was an undergrad, so I studied physics at Brandeis University. So I actually had a concentration in biological physics because I became like interested in going to medical school at that time, and then I ended up taking all the pre-med classes and including biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, and then I
Hmm.
became more interested in like life science per se, but my major and my background was still in physics. I still continued doing my physics major and research, etc. When I was in college, but then I decided I'm no longer want to pursue medical school. So I continued with my physics background, but with an interest in life science. So this type of research that's a kind of interdisciplinary that kind of utilizes physics to study biological problems become like more appealing to me. That's kind of why I got into it when I'm in grad school.
That's awesome. Cool. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Can you explain to me a little bit about the PhD system in general? Like,
Mm-hmm.
meaning when you go to undergrad and, if I'm not mistaken, also graduate school, you have a certain like required classes that you have to take, and once you take them, and you basically get your diploma or your degree, right? But the
Yeah.
PhD is not just like that. It's not just you take some classes, you pass them, and then you got it. Is it?
No, it's completely different. So uh, it's like some aspects of a PhD is similar to graduate school or undergrad,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very different. So first, different programs at different universities are going to be completely different. With different structures. So, like, and in the United States and in overseas in Europe or in other countries like Israel, Asia, like, it's going to be also completely different. So, in the US, at least for STEM, you don't need to have a master's degree before you start your PhD program. So the majority of PhD students apply when they're undergrad. Um, but in Europe and in Asia, you are required to have a master first. But
Mm-hmm.
their PhD process is shorter. So in the US, the PhD process is longer because it's expected that you haven't gotten a master beforehand. So the
Right.
system is built slightly differently. So depends on the program, but usually during our first 1 to 2 years, we'll be taking some classes, and the class load would be a lot less than compared to undergrad because you're taking more advanced classes and they require a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
So they're also usually a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging. So you take usually like somewhere between 1 to 4 classes,
For the
but
whole
you on
PhD?
average, no, No, for the
or
whole
per
PhD,
semester?
I think for my program we are required to take 7 classes.
Wow.
Um, I'm not like sure. I don't
Uh-huh.
remember exactly because that was my first year. Uh,
Yeah.
but we usually take like 2 or 3 classes per semester the first year, and then the second year we'll take 1 class per semester, and that will fulfill all our class requirements. And depends on the program. Some programs have like a very set course like kind of structure that you are required to take these core classes, but my program, for example, there's like 1 class that you are required to take pretty much, and everything else you choose based on your research interest, or what, just in general, whatever you're interested in. Like for a PhD program in general, what the classes you're taking is not really to fulfill a requirement. It's more like you're actually trying to learn something that's going to be super useful for your research.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And then after our classes, usually in the from the beginning, you start doing like rotations in different labs, working on different research projects, trying to select a lab that you're interested in working at. And once you have that, you start doing your dissertation. You can start working on your dissertation research, and and you work on that until your last year. And somewhere along the line, you have some teaching requirements. So that also depends on the program, but every single PhD program in the US have some teaching requirements. You're required to teach at least 1 class. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. Um, you're still with us? Because I don't, you may have gotten, you're with us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought you got like cut off there for a second. Cool. I remember I graduated about a year and a half ago, and yeah, I studied computer science. We had some PhD students, I think they were PhD students, kind of help us in the labs and whatnot. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. So I guess now a little bit more, but just to clarify, so you have to kind of write or create or publish some of your own original research. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you have to like basically almost go and do something that's never been done before and be like, this is what I found.
That's by definition true. Everyone's required to do that.
Isn't
But
that?
with the help of your PI or principal investigator,
Mm-hmm.
as the person who's leading your lab, your mentor. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. And
But
what
isn't
was your
that
question?
terrifying? Like, what if you don't find anything worth, like, you research and then it's like, nope, nothing interesting here, or like it didn't work? What happens then?
So that actually happens quite often, believe it or not, because that's kind of part of life when you are trying to do something that has never been done in the world. You're trying to create new knowledge in the world. So yeah, or I mean, I want to say create, but like discover new things in the world.
Yeah.
Usually, your mentors will help you design your thesis in a way where,
Mm-hmm.
so first, um, number one, your hypothesis or whatever you're trying to find out
Mm-hmm.
will be based on current literature of what other people have done already, and you're going in a direction that, I'm sure we're all familiar with this concept of educated guess.
Yeah.
So instead of going in complete blind, you are guided by a body of literature of like what other people have already done, and you build on top of that. That's usually how it is first. And second, you can ask many questions. That's what you're trying to find out. You're trying to answer scientific questions that hasn't been answered before. So if there's nothing interesting, you you have that's why the PhD process is usually really long. You'll have time to move on to the next question. So you like when you in the beginning when you structure your thesis, you would have multiple questions
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out like things. And also the best type of PhD thesis designed would be okay, would be publishable one way or another. It's a question that you can publish uh, even if nothing works. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that.
So, but in general, that does happen. It does happen to people where you don't find anything interesting, and actually, some people have gone through an entire PhD, not at anyone's own fault, not being able to publish anything, but usually that's rare. Most people will
Right.
be able to publish something. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy.
And it is
Um,
a very stressful process because you're in the unknown,
yeah.
and which is one thing that's interesting about people who are trained, who are PhDs, because you are trained to be, because like you're trained to be like comfortable um, with these situations, which is kind of an interesting skill set to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's exactly the reason why I ended up studying computer science because I had taken some English classes. I took some I didn't know what I wanted to study in college when I first started,
Hmm.
and I took some of the requirements, and I really didn't like how they would make me how these assignments would require me to like come up with like a theory as to why the writer said X or Y. And I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
know. Like, what if I can't come up with a theory? You want me to like BS it? Like, I don't like BS. I hate BS. I hate BS. So I'm like, you're asking me to come up with something, and like, if I can't, then I'm just gonna have to BS it for the grade. But I don't like doing that. So I was like, I just want to write. I just want to study something which is like I don't have to create anything of my own, so to speak. It's just answering the question. So that's
Hmm.
why I kind of narrowed it down to math, physics, engineering, and computer science. And then among those four, I guess the coolest one just seemed like computer science. I didn't think very idealistically. I was just like, what should what's like the coolest or best, most practical thing to study? But
Hmm.
um,
I mean, computer science definitely is very good and
yeah,
practical.
that's for
And
sure.
also, like a lot of the research I end up doing, even though coming from a physics background, it's pivoting into computer science because like on my current day to day is like programming and coding.
You
So
code? You code for your
yeah,
PhD? Oh,
I
wow.
mean, I have to like when if I want to do like any of my analysis or like computer vision, that's all require programming.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I
So
think that.
so so like so
Go
like
ahead.
when it comes down to day, I pretty much just do programming at this point. It's
That's funny.
yeah, yeah.
That's funny. I think that the way the world's headed with technology being so much more powerful and so much more
Hmm.
ever present, because we have so many more devices and we use them in ways that we weren't doing before. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if, like, if you start for every now, let's say one in every 10 people, or I'm just picking a random number, one in every 10 people is a programmer. As more and more
Hmm.
things go online, you're going to have basically every other person is going to be a programmer because every company, even if it's just a law firm or a roofing company, all of a sudden is going to have this
Hmm.
software to help them out. So for every employee that does something else, you're going to need one programmer to take care of the technology that they use to do that. That's just a theory, but it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's so interesting like how technology is completely just opening so many doors for us that
yeah. I mean, I guess
we didn't know
I
about before.
I I think we're definitely going into that direction because we see a lot of industries that have never used that have you never used to hire like computer programmers or like kind of like software engineers or data scientists and of sorts like in their industry, and now they're all hiring people in this industry because like with the current like trend of like how much like each industry is like building to rely on tech,
Hmm.
and they need more and more people who are in tech to like work in this industry. So it's really interesting to see like how much more demand there is. I don't know if I would say like every other person, but
Yeah.
it's definitely
Yeah.
going in that trend. Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's, if we may, I want to kind of take it a little bit closer to the personal side. You know, you studied all of this. Why did you decide? What about it spoke to you? Meaning, maybe you studied this because this is what you majored in undergrad, but take us to why you're doing what you're doing. What is that? Why is that significant to you?
Like, are you asking about the project specifically?
I'm talking about more the general direction that you're taking with your life. Why did you
Mm,
decide to study physics in undergrad? And
got
once
it.
you did that, why did you decide, I think this dissertation topic would be something I'd be interested in. What,
Hmm.
how does this speak to you, if it does, if at all?
So I would say when I was in college, uh, this I mean, I think even before college, I've always wanted to do physics, and that's just
Okay.
something I've been really good at since
Mm-hmm.
I was very young. I've always been great at it. So I
Yeah.
always knew I was going to be a physics major. And I applied to
Okay.
colleges like, I mean, in liberal arts college, you don't really like have to declare a major, but I like, you have like an intent. So I've always applied as
Yeah.
like I'm intending to be a physics major, and I did. I never really like explored anything else. Honestly, I
Mm-hmm.
was never like I'm like a half decent writer, but I never explored any other subjects because they require writing too
Yeah.
much, and so or reading. So that was like just not like I'm more like a logical kind of person, like more like analytical type of person. So I was always into math and physics. So that was mostly just something that I really enjoyed from a very young age. I just never really explored other things. And also in terms of going to grad school, it was actually really funny because I was in my junior year in college, and I think I was like had enough credit to graduate and finish the requirement. So I was like, might as
Mm-hmm.
well, save a whole year's tuition and time and graduate a year early. So I was in my junior year, the beginning of junior year. I knew I was going to graduate in 3 years. So my advisors in college was like, because like in physics, it's very like academia kind of oriented. There's a very like academia oriented track.
Mm-hmm.
You can like graduate and go get a job like anywhere like with no problem, but also like the professors always want you to like pursue a PhD because they're more academic, like academia minded. So they encouraged me to apply, and in my mind I was like, might as well just apply because it's like it doesn't like um it doesn't really like cost me anything. I mean, okay, other than the application fees, but whatever. Uh, it doesn't
Yeah.
really cost me much to apply. And I'll see like if I get into any good programs, and if I do, like getting a PhD from like Stanford or Harvard or MIT would be like really amazing. And also, even if you work in physics, if you go on find a job, most likely you will have to go back to school for some graduate degree if you want to like get to a certain point in your career, because
Yeah.
it's just the industry standard. With an undergraduate degree in physics, it's just not enough. Um, so I mean, it's totally doable. It's just still most people will go back to school. So I was like, it's easier to stay in school other than just like going to get a job and then going back to school. So that was kind of my idea, and I was thinking if I got into anything good, I would go. If I don't, I would take a year off and then work and then apply next year. But also when you're in school, because you're in this academic like system, it's very
Mm-hmm.
easy to apply to grad school because you have to go away for interviews for grad school and visit weekends. But if you're in university, your professors will be like extremely encouraging and be like, yes, I'm so glad you got invited to an interview, so we're so happy for you. Don't worry about your homework, don't worry
Yeah.
about anything else, just go. Like we'll give you like extension and this and that. But in the real world, if you are working at a real job and you are going off every other weekend for an interview, your boss is probably not going to be super happy about it. So it's like it's like kind of the easiest, like it's like a built-in structure where people are very encouraging for you to like go apply for grad school.
Yeah.
And so I didn't decide to apply until maybe a few weeks before the deadline, because again, this was the beginning of my junior year. I just finished my second year of college, so I wasn't even thinking about anything in the future. So and my professors were really encouraging me because they really want me to apply. And then obviously they all loved me. Anyways, uh so I like put together some application within a week, and I need professors to also write recommendation letters. So I was like, I'm sorry, this is super last minute, but I decided I'm gonna apply for grad schools. And so they were like, no problem. They sent me they sent their recommendation letters in like 2-3 days. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I sent in all the
They
applications.
use
That was
ChatGPT. They just
uh,
use ChatGPT.
we didn't have ChatGPT at that time. This
What?
was
What do you
8
mean?
years ago.
What? You what? What? You didn't
This was
have
like 7-8 years
ChatGPT
ago.
more than 4 months ago? Is that what you're telling me? I'm
Wait,
joking.
what do you? No, the this was years ago. Okay,
I
fine.
know, I
Okay,
know,
I
I
can't
know.
tell sarcasm. Anyways, uh, and then so and then it ended up I actually got into almost all the programs that I applied for. And I think it was easier for me to apply to schools
Hold on,
and
hold on. Let's
go
let's
on
pause. Let's
interviews.
pause for a second. You got into all the programs, or almost all the
I think
programs you
almost
applied to.
all.
Look at that.
Yeah,
I'm
there
gonna
was
I'm gonna
one
use
program I think.
I'm gonna use a little of these built-in sounds. Hold on, 1 second. 1 second.
Okay.
And it's coming up. I don't know why it's taking so long. All right, congratulations.
Thank you. I think at that point, honestly, it was easier for me because I didn't really have that stress. I was applying um kind of with a like, oh, we'll see if I get in attitude instead of like I really want to go to grad school right
Yeah.
now. So there was no stress or anxiety of that process. It was very nice, and it was the visiting weekends are really nice. The schools invite you to
Mm.
visit their school, and usually as an interview, but so it depends on the program. Some program accept you beforehand, some don't. So it was a really nice time. So my second semester, my last semester of college, I practically was just traveling away, visiting all these great cities
Yes, yes.
every single weekend.
Wow.
And it was, well, the expenses were all covered, which was
Who
also
who covered
amazing.
it? The
And they
schools
really,
themselves?
the schools, yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
then
awesome. You
they
were just
also
traveling around.
traveling around, and they put you up at hotels,
Wow.
and they take you to the best restaurants
Wow.
activities. And at that point, I didn't keep kosher, so that was amazing.
Yes.
If I did keep kosher, I couldn't have gone to any of the restaurant activities, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So it was like, so while all my peers, I really felt good about myself because all my peers were still in their third year, like they're still taking classes. I was gone the entire semester.
Yeah.
Uh, it was nice. And then out of all the schools, I mean, I think I would have to say that the obvious choice was Harvard. So I
Hmm.
decided to stay in
Because
the
of the
Boston
name or
area.
because of other factors as well?
So both, a lot of other schools I got into were also very like prestigious,
Yeah.
but I would say Harvard obviously is the best one.
Okay. It's not
And
I'm assuming it has the name for a reason. I mean, that is kind of
oh, it has the name for a reason, and the professors are absolutely amazing, and the programs are absolutely amazing. It really does have the best quality. I mean, again, a lot of these other schools had amazing professors. I would have had a very fulfilling PhD career
hmm
if I went to any other schools. And also at that point, I was living in the Boston area because Brandeis was
right.
in Waltham, is a suburb of Boston. So it was very convenient also. And Harvard was like a no brainer in terms of the program and everything. So I decided I was going to Harvard for my PhD. And yeah, so I like found a lab that I was interested in. Uh,
In that
very
area?
quickly. Huh?
In the area?
Oh
The
yeah,
the
so
lab.
like you have to find a lab in the university. So
Oh, okay.
so yeah. So I started working there. Uh like you start doing your research. So and within the lab, but the reason why I picked this specific lab is because it's also like there are very few labs that are like very specifically biophysics in terms of like coming from a purely physics background but studying biology. So a lot of there are other people doing that, but most labs, if they're doing a biophysics, most of the professors come from biology background. So I wanted to be in a lab where everyone, including the professor, comes from a physics background because that's just something I connect to more, and I think is something that I would understand more.
Hmm.
Um, and out of all the projects, there was a very interesting project in clinical IVF, and I've with my like previous interest in medicine, so that became like a very attractive choice for me. And so I was doing in the beginning doing a lot of experimental stuff with mouse embryos in the lab, like and later there was another project that was mostly analyzing clinical data, which is what I pivoted to.
Hmm.
And it just like was like I don't know, I never had an interest in learning how to program, except for I always thought it was a useful skill, so I was like might as well do this project, do both project at the same time, and
Yeah.
um, learn how to program. It will be a useful skill after I graduate for like my future career. And then with like the mouse embryos are very hard to work with.
Hmm.
So this is one of the situations where nothing worked. Or
Right.
not much worked, I would say. So I just ended up pivoting to the project that was working. Um, which and also with COVID happening, the lab was shut down, so I couldn't have worked on the wet lab project anyways. So I just ended up pivoting completely to the data analysis project. So that's kind of how my entire process was going.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Allow us to pivot um, away from this and let us get more into the psychological or philosophical, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of Reddit. I love Reddit. so many. I think people there are hilarious. Um, if
I
you're not,
agree.
if you're not, I'm talking to the listeners or the viewers. Because this is, if you're listening to us on Spotify, the intention is also to post on YouTube, and there you can actually see the video. You can see our pretty faces, or her pretty face, because I am what I am. But
Thank you.
yeah, um, don't tell my girlfriend I said that. I'm just kidding. I don't have a girlfriend yet. So so anyway, let's go on Reddit. I found this question, and I think it's an interesting one to discuss. Um, I
Hmm.
will I will not read the username of the person who posted this, so as to, maybe they don't want the whole freaking world to know this question.
Well,
But
it is on Reddit, so
it is, but maybe they don't want the whole, I don't know, 8 billion people in the entire world to know it. But um
that's how popular this podcast is.
yes, it is exactly. Yeah. So I will summarize. The
Hmm.
title of the post goes, "My daughter clings to male role models. Teachers recommend therapy." It says like this: I've been a single mom most of my daughter's life. Which
Hmm.
the daughter is 9 years old, female. Her dad has been a part of her life sporadically. He pops up whenever it suits him and then disappears for months. He hadn't congratulated her for the last two birthdays and didn't call for Christmas either. Long story short, my daughter's teachers say that my daughter clings to other children's dads when they come to the schoolyard to pick up their kids. She usually runs up to her best friend's dad, and her best friend got quite upset about it because she feels it's her dad and not my daughter's. My daughter also clings to other male role models in her life, like her PE teacher. Her teachers recommend therapy because they don't think this behavior is normal and that she needs someone to talk to about her absent father. Does anyone deal with similar issues? Is therapy really necessary? Question: do you think, if you were, let's say, is this anything to do anything about? Is this, if the mother was asking you, would you say you have nothing to worry about, just kind of let it be, it's all good? Or you think that there's something, that this is an issue, so to speak, and something should be done? We don't have to get into yet. I mean, the follow-up question will obviously be, what might you think should be done? But do you think that something should be done about this? There's something that needs to be done?
I mean, obviously, I'm not an expert in psychology or like children's behavior.
Yeah.
But just from my personal understanding, I would have to agree that it's not normal behavior.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know if, I mean, again, like, I don't know if therapy is necessary,
Right.
but I think something should be done.
Okay.
Um, I I think also, but on the other hand, the if the child is only 9 years old,
Hmm.
uh, I think maybe like something we can wait and see what happens later in life. Because like when you're at that age, you really don't are not like super like this, like people's self-awareness are not like 100% there yet.
Okay.
So I don't know, like I think a lot of people like tend to like, I don't know, like worry too much. I mean, at least in our like society now, like worry too much about children's like it like pro like behaviors or things, like a little too much.
Hmm.
But usually they grow out of it. Like I'm sure I had all kinds of problems that I just grew out of. I mean, I'm not saying if it was a serious problem, like shouldn't have been addressed, but I think people are like kind of overly alarmed about things.
Yeah. Do you
I
think?
think maybe
Yeah, go ahead. Go
if
ahead.
I were the parent, I would probably like monitor the situation and pay more attention to it and see like and evaluate the situation further instead of like, oh, get her into therapy right away or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I think I would tend to follow a similar approach. In life, a lot of times, I'm my kind of my way of operating is, a lot of times, kind of let it, if something is unclear, give it a little bit more time until it kind of goes to one side or the other, to remove that
Right.
doubt. I
Mm-hmm.
think that this thing that I'm saying with the daughter, um, I mean, I guess, look, people are pointing it out, which means this is kind of like not the usual thing. I
Right.
get,
I would 100% agree. It's not a usual behavior.
I'm saying, like, if I would see it, I don't know, but like clinging to her PE teacher, that's, her friend's dad is like fine, like she likes her friends, her dad's, whatever, but like already her PE teacher is like, okay, like she's clearly looking for that male, what's the word? Like acceptance
Attention
or
or
attention,
something. Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
She's looking for a father figure.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the the simple thing. I would say it's
Yeah.
pretty, I don't know. And yeah, I think at that point, based on what they're describing, it's something, like you said, to keep an eye on, but I don't think it's something to freak out about yet, if at all, in the
Yeah.
future. Um, at the same time, I think a good therapist, um, is one who knows when there's a need to do something and when it's just like when to say to the parents or the mother in this case, like, I think it's fine, just kind of let it be for now and just keep an eye
Mm-hmm.
on it. And and like if you see certain things, whatever, then you can, you should take more action. But it's good to maybe, talk to a therapist. I don't think it would hurt to have one or two sessions just to kind of
Right.
have some kind of
Yeah, that
picture.
sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know, I think in general, I mean, I don't know if like this is specific to like science. It's just I don't think there are a lot of like female role models. I mean, there are some, but I don't think the vast majority of role models of like tech or science is male. Um,
Wait, say again?
in our like I think in general, most tech or science role models
Yeah.
in our society is male. I guess I never really like. I personally never had a problem with it, but I can see the issue.
You're saying there's
I can
not a
see the
lot of
potential.
female representation in like the more role model area within the STEM world.
Yeah, yeah. There
Yeah.
are some. There are some, but not
Yeah.
a lot.
And why do you
Like,
think that might be?
but
Because I worked at a company. I'm not gonna say the name because I don't know. Maybe they won't like this and they could sue me for the entire $200 I have in my bank account. So guys, I'm gonna post my Venmo in the description. You know what to do. Um, the Jonathan Atias Defend Fund against the company that I worked for. But there were not in our team. I can only speak for my team. There were
mm-hmm,
not. We were like 12 people.
mm-hmm,
Um, we're nine developers. Not one of
mm-hmm,
us were female.
mm-hmm,
Um, out of there were two managers. One was female. I'm saying like nine developers and not a single female. I mean that's like maybe it's a small sample. I only have vision into one team within the entire company, which is upwards of hundreds of thousands of people. Um but yeah, I feel like um this gets into a little bit maybe gender stereotypes. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I mean, let me look it up real quick, like percentage of females
I
in
mean,
programming. It says here
yeah.
that
What is the
it
real
says here according
percentage?
to Silential.ai, you know. I mean, I saw on the internet that Abraham Lincoln once said, you shouldn't trust everything you read on the internet. So, we're supposed to take Abraham Lincoln's word, very beautiful beard and hat, but assuming we can take this at their word, Silential.ai, first result on Google, says women in software engineering make up, wait, what? I don't know. It's confusing. It's about 30%. That's what I'm
Okay.
looking like. Um, Whatever. Let's assume that it's underrepresented because that's just not gonna prove it with
Sure.
statistics, but
I
it
mean,
seems to be.
I wouldn't even say 30% would be a underrepresentation
Here it says large
because
companies have 22% of their software engineers being women, while small companies 25. So,
okay,
assuming
so
that,
1 in 4 on average.
right, now obviously you have to take into consideration, okay, obviously you have to take into consideration that maybe the workforce itself is not evenly divided between males and females, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Right.
if the entire workforce is 80% male, 20% female, then having 20% female, 80% male in a company is not underrepresentation. It's just what it is.
Right.
You could
I
ask,
mean, like that would be a more complicated analysis, but I think in general, I, I'm relatively comfortable with being the only female slash the only girl in any situations. I think there were like a lot of classes I've taken because I tend to take only like super analytical classes in physics and math. So sometimes I'm the only girl in the entire
yeah,
class, and that happened a good amount of time. And I don't know. I think more of my like political or feminist oriented friends would point that out to me all the time when I don't even notice.
hmm
I think like in general, maybe it's like my personality. I'm comfortable with being the only girl around a bunch of guys, but yeah, I don't know. I think for some other people, it could be extremely intimidating.
hmm
Um, I guess, but like it also comes down to like most girls like probably out of I mean again, this is just what I think, like
yeah.
probably wouldn't choose to be in those careers. I mean,
Why?
it's
Why
also a
not?
personal preference and
You're
choice.
saying
Why
you're saying
not? I
it's
mean,
not. You're saying it's not that they're not. I'm asking. I don't know if this is what you're saying. Are you saying that to you it doesn't appear to be that women aren't able to make it in those careers? It's just that they
they
have
can
no
totally make
interest
it
in
if they
it.
want to.
It's just they
I
seem to
mean,
have no interest in it as much as males. Is that what you seem to be
I
saying?
wouldn't say no interest. I would say less interest because like it really is a specific STEM is a specific career where you have to be extremely logical and analytical
And we know women
and
aren't that. Hold on, hold on. One second, one second, one second, second. One second. Listen here. Where is it? Where is it? Let me say that again. We know women aren't that. Again. All right. I like.
Ah, that's hilarious.
We're
Okay.
gonna have a lot of fun with these
So,
sounds in the future. I'm gonna work on adding some
I
good
love the
ones.
sounds. We should have been playing them the entire time.
So I
I
don't
love
have good
this.
ones. I just have a couple.
Oh, these are great already. So I will.
All right. Let's keep going because we're running pretty long.
I w-
Let's wrap up this
okay.
segment. Quickly do the next one, and then take us home, baby.
Sounds good. I would say, uh, women are men and women are good at different things. Is what it comes down to. Women are just tend to be better at like social interactions,
Okay.
and they are better at reading social cues, at reading people, at engaging in social situations. So that tend to put women in careers that are more
People
like in
oriented.
person, one on one, people oriented. And
Right.
but when it comes to people oriented careers, that's not tech because that's not you like you're not gonna want to sit behind a computer all day not talking to anyone,
Right.
or not literally not talking to anyone, but that's like the majority of your day. You're like sitting there being on your own. Or for me, like if I'm working in a lab, I could be in a dark microscope room, like working on my cells, with no one to talk to. I'm just there alone. And that's not a career that most women find appealing. And also a tech oriented or science oriented career tend to be like have a crazier schedule instead of a 9 to 5 schedule, which I personally very much enjoy because I enjoy the flexibility. But sometimes you're just working late at night at 2 a.m. Uh, and most women probably wouldn't enjoy doing that.
Allow me to cut you
And
off,
but
Helen, because people are
yes,
gonna not want to listen to our next episode if we go so long. Um,
okay, all right.
in 3 minutes tops, tell us what superpower you would curse your enemy with and why.
I would curse my enemy with the superpower that they can't that everything they taste is gonna taste bad.
Beautiful, and why? Why is that so bad?
Uh, because for me personally, I love eating, I love food. So not being able to taste good food is the worst thing I can possibly imagine.
Helen has
So
a. I'm not gonna spill too much of the beans here, but Helen has a little group of friends that they like to go out every month or so, and they go out to eat. It's very exclusive. I was added, but if I don't participate, I'm going to be removed, I was told.
purged. It's
Purged
called
is the correct
purged.
word. So I am dreading that day, which is why I will try to attend the next dinner party. All right. And finally, to close us off, that's it. Helen, thank you so much. We will finish with one question for the audience. This is also from Reddit. Waiters of Reddit, how full do you like a customer's mouth to be before you ask if their meal is to their satisfaction? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the first episode of Let's Have Fun. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Goodbye. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.